Today we're going to be working on the SimMan Essentials or SimMan Essentials bleeding right IV arm. So when the IV arm won't flow, so the mannequin's powered on, you've got a syringe hooked up here and you're pushing fluid through and priming it with the button here and no fluid's going through. It's because one of a couple of reasons. I don't really see a huge benefit on this, so what we're going to do today is just bypass that. And you can see the skin is already off the mannequin here, and he needs some work, so ignore any other issues that you might see. So for today, you're going to need distilled water, a 8mm Allen wrench, or the one that came with the mannequin, pair of pliers, or regular or needle nose, a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. I have the multi-tool here. And then a drill bit. The size is, barely see it, 7/32 is the size. And then a 10mm, 11mm wrench, ratchet, whatever it might be, with a deep socket, and then a syringe, pretty much any size. I also recommend getting some of this tubing from SMC. It is the part number TU0425. The company is SMC. You can buy it in different lengths. Here's the part number. Not super expensive, and you only need a foot of it, but so buy the smallest number you can buy. But this is good for any of the SimMan 3G or Essentials replacement tubing on several areas, not just the arm here. So first thing we're going to do is unzip the skin on the upper left and lower left. If you have the newer chest skin, it could be on the right side as well. Take the chest plate and then unclip the defib cable and just roll the chest plate assembly off to the left here. Take the abdominal assembly, cheapers, sorry, I can't talk today, and raise up the chest spring assembly. So in here, you're going to see the Allen bolt there, and then there'll be 3 connections, which mine are already unhooked. But there's the wire connection, 1 hose connection, and then another wire that's gray with a silver tip. So this gets released, kind of spin it around, on the other end with a button there. So there it is. So I've already hooked mine because I started on this job and I thought, I'll record a video. So I'll go ahead and release this. Just loosen it up and then take it out. Unclip the 3 parts here. 1, 2, 3. I'll have to roll the skin back over and then take the arm right off and guide the wires out of that spot there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take all the screws out from underneath here. There's 15 screws on the arm here, so go ahead and take those all the way out and then set them aside. Recommend pulling this hose out of the exit port. You might need a pair of needle nose pliers. Mine just came out, so I was able to pull it pretty easy, but pull that out completely out to get it out of your way for the bottom cap. So, okay, next thing we want to do is grab the hose that's going to the exit port. We're just going to take it out of the valve here. Once that comes out, go ahead and grab this other hose here and take that out. I'm using my needle nose pliers to get a little brace and take that up. Once you've taken all the screws out, just take the cap and lay it to the side. The screws might fall out, that's okay. So release the hose here that's clamped up in this seat. And then next thing we're gonna do is take apart some of the hoses in here. My hose up top here, the clip had broken off, so I just gonna pull that right out. It was already broken, so I was already gonna replace this tip here. It's like a lure lock style that starts the hose out. And then come down to the lower part, flip it over, release this. You take the skin should be off by now. You can just take it off inside to the side, and then pull the 2 hoses out. Doesn't matter which order, that connect to the arm here. Sorry, I need one. There we go, got it. And just set this aside. Move back over. Once you get that hose out, put it back over, and you can actually just remove this part here. All right, now I'm going to replace this connection point, send it through there. This bolt that holds it on, it's kind of hard, the needle nose to get back on, it's kind of hard to feel it to get down in there, so I use the needle nose just to get it onto this contact point. It's always hard to do any job with one hand. Okay, make sure it's evenly on there. And now I'm going to use my 11mm deep shell socket to ratchet it down because I can see that it's evenly on right now. So, all right, you might have some hoses that are free, so just go ahead and take this part, like I mentioned, out of there. This one you can take out. We're actually going to reuse this reducer here, so connection point. So save that for a minute. I'm just going to tuck a couple of these hoses out of the way. Anyways, so I'm going to cut out this end here so it's a little more straight and not curved, so we can attach our fitting and the hose that we bought. So, or you can reuse the one that you have. Next, we're going to reuse the longest hose off this bell to connect to the entrance port there, and then back to the IV pad, the top part of the IV pad. Where am I at? There we are. Yes, I know I've got mold in there. I'm going to replace these hoses here after this video, so just bear with me, please. And then the other hose here will go to the adapter that we're going to save, which is right here. And then our new hose, if you don't have this, that's okay. You can reuse the old one. I'm just doing that for a couple different reasons. One of them is because when this hose gets clamped in here and you get a lot of volume through there, especially on an IV pump, it can expand the hose and break it down over time. So I like to actually hone out this area and send it through a different spot, which we're going to do in a second here, before I get to the exit port, and then remove it from any of these clamping areas, because again, the hose expands, so it does damage to it within those tight areas. So, all right, let's get going on this. Now you can see the port, or the hose will go through there. In that ballpark there. Makes it a lot easier. So, and then once you've established what the length that you need, I apologize for my camera work. It is really hard to do this one-handed. Once you establish what size you need, go and cut off an extra and then attach it to the end port there. So now I'm going to connect the red hose to the fitting here. The larger part will go to the red hose, or yours might be clear depending on what version IV pad you might have, because a couple versions have extra little part on there to hold the pad down a little better. If you can't get this on, I'd recommend using a hair dryer to heat up this area. It makes it a lot easier to get onto the fitting here. So, all right, once we've got that on, just make sure the hoses are all in the correct spot. Let's send the longest one through. We'll just connect it on there for right now. And now we can connect where the hose go. This hose to the upper part of the arm. It's a little tight, but you can get it on. So it might even be easier to hook it up the opposite way. So where you hook up the entrance port last. So, but I can make this work. Very careful with these fittings. They want to turn and break off, so I would recommend bracing it as you're putting it on. So, okay, just for now, I'm going to store it in there. And then our exit. Need to come up and over here. And this will go to our exit bottom case. All right, now that our hose is connected at the exit port here, we're gonna make sure that we don't have any wires or hoses that are gonna end up in the contact point for where we screw the arm casing back down. This wire did move on me, it was up over here, so again, make sure that that stuff is not gonna make contact along this rim here. So I like to roll the hand skin up all the way forward if I can, And then that way, when I'm putting it into the contact point there, whatever it's called, I don't care, it will seat in there quite nicely, and it won't be so hard to put the casing back together. So, all right. As other thing is that this the point for where the shoulder rotates, make sure that's seated in there, because this can pop out instead of alongside here. There we go. So make sure it's in that area. Okay, so that it rotates properly. Now we're going to roll the casing back over, and I'm going to double check to make sure that none of my hoses or any of that stuff are sticking out like that. All right, now that my casing is tight together, well, it is if I hold it, and I know none of my hoses are sticking through the sides there, I'm going to go ahead and replace those with 15 screws for this. I'd recommend not using a cordless drill or any of that stuff, or cordless screw gun or any of that stuff, because you can put too much pressure in the casing very easily, and you can do stress cracks, and it'll just keep on cracking. If for some reason that you absolutely have to use a screw gun, drill, whatever you want to call it, I'd put it on setting 2 or 3 at the highest, but I'd recommend not doing this. All right, now that we got all the screws put back in, by the way, if you have a piece of skin over the pulse area, just go ahead and peel it off and throw it in the garbage. You don't need it. It's just an extra layer for you to try to palpate the radial sensors or the distal pulses, and just gets in the way. So next thing we want to do is we want to roll the skin back over. So take this cap off and then slide the skin back over, which I can't do one-handed. So make sure that your skin is aligned, and then go ahead and put this IV pad to the top first, and then click down here. And I can't do one-handed, so I gotta, there we go, got it. Heard that nice click there. Next thing we want to do is actually put some fluid in, some distilled water in here, and test the flow. And then go ahead and put your drain bag on the back side here to make sure that it is flowing correctly. While you're doing that, you want this to be open so you can visualize if there's any leaks. So have that open when you're pushing fluid through. All right, I have my syringe filled with distilled water. Just go ahead and screw it on there, and then I'm just going to use a cup to collect the fluid because I can't find my IV bag. So you can see it's pouring out the back quite nicely. And I like to do a syringe full of air after that. Now I'm going to check to make sure I don't have any leaks in here. And it looks pretty dry. So now we can put this cap back on. All right, that thing is a little bit tricky to get on. Just make sure that your skin is properly aligned and not in the way of this clip here, but it is kind of a bear. Next thing we're going to do is send the 3 cables through the arm there. I'm gonna get really good at doing this one-handed here. And then visualize that you're sending them through here, and make sure they're not bound up or anything. We won't be need to hook up the hose anymore because we're not using that. So here we go, just the other 2 wires. Next thing I do, and this is really important, is that, so you can see where it's making contact there. It'll come through, and there'll be a sort of a ridge where this will slide into. And it'll allow rotation, but not allow it to come off. Always hand tighten this. I'm going to pull back and forth as I'm turning this clockwise to tighten it. You can see it's not coming off. Now we're going to make our connections, and then do everything in reverse by putting the chest assembly down and chest plate back on. Make sure you make your connection. Abdominal assembly goes back in place, and then peel the skin back over. Thanks.